First, I want to thank everybody for coming, and I want to thank some of the board members for showing up, because I'm sure that they will be able to add something to this. In any event, my name is Pam Bliss, and I want to welcome you, and I want to thank you. Just to lay a couple of ground rules, we're going to go through some presentation. Feel free to come up to the podium and ask a question, although questions need to be specific. Broad statements and unfounded accusations, there's going to be no place for those in this meeting. So if you have a question or you have something to add to it, we want to hear you. If you have something else on an agenda, well, maybe that's for another time. So I do appreciate everyone being here. So let's get started. First off, I try my hardest to be completely transparent, honest, and take accountability. I want to get something out of the way before we start the rest of the presentation, because once again, there are rumors going around saying how I've been costing the HOA thousands of dollars in all these lawsuits that I've been filing. The thing of it is, there are no lawsuits. And if anybody says that to you, I would appreciate it if you would ask them to show you the lawsuit. There was one lawsuit that I did file, that was in small claims court. Small claims do not allow attorneys, so shouldn't have been any real cost to the HOA for that. And this is the reason why I did file the small claims. This is what my front yard looked. For you new residents here, this is because the HOA decided to turn off the water during a heat wave to all of our front yards, causing really bad damage. Now at first, they said that it was because there was water restrictions. Except two representatives from both water districts came in this auditorium, and when asked point blank, are there any water restrictions that would affect the watering of our front yards? The answer from both water districts was no, there is not. Then it was extra cost. The cost was too high. We had to shut it off. Well, that was kind of debunked also by the two water districts, and that was recorded and up on YouTube. So you can view that for yourself and make sure that I'm telling you a straight story. Because even if the water was a little high, what do you think the damage was caused? What do you think that was going to cost us? So in any event, because we were not getting this whole story, and this was just sprung on us, and this kept going on and on, residents were getting very upset. I filed a small claims action. In that small claims action, the judge did not rule in my favor. He did not rule in the HOA favor either. He dismissed the case. And that is because our CC&Rs state that our front lawns are basically considered common area, and we couldn't do anything against the HOA if the HOA decided to shut off the water, which is fine. A point was made after the lawsuit, the water was turned back on. And it's taken us quite some time and thousands of dollars in reseeding twice to repair the damage that was done. So that is the only lawsuit that was ever filed by me. So hopefully this puts it to bed, and we will not hear this false and malicious rumor being spread anymore. So let's get on to more fun things. A resident said to me, "Gee, Pam, when you start your presentation, you really ought to tell people a little bit about you, instead of just diving into everything like you normally do." I thought, that's probably a good idea. So here's a little bit about my career. I think. I spent 40 years in the electronic components industry, and I started out at Texas Instruments with their standard components. I spent 18 years with custom radiation hardened circuits for the military and classified programs. That morphed into me being part of the team of being a United States representative to NATO on battlefield and night vision. I held 3 security clearances, one for the Department of Defense, one for the National Security Agency, and one for NATO. I ended up as Executive Vice President of a $100 million standard component manufacturer. We had more than 500 employees, we had 3 factories, and I had an international network of manufacturers, reps, and distributors. So I think I know a little bit about business, and I think I know a little bit about finances and how things should operate. Now, as far as HOA community involvement, I was elected the HOA president. We spearheaded a lawsuit that we had against the developer where we won greater than $14 million for the homeowners. I represented residents of the city of Vista in negotiating a new lease accord with the city and with property owners. And I also worked to stop the building of a new international airport in Orange County that was proposed on the old Marine Air Station. So that's kind of my community involvement. I am very community oriented. So if I'm elected, these are a few of the things that I plan on pursuing. There is a flyer out in the lobby that has more detail and more items, so I just picked a few. One of them that I'm very, very serious about is wanting to make sure that executive sessions only involve topics that are legally defined. Now you might ask, gee Pam, what are those topics? How do we know what those topics are? Well, because the state of California is governed by the Open Meeting Act, which is written based on the Brown Act. Mm-hmm. Executive session meetings are limited to these topics: litigation, active and pending, formation of contracts, the disciplinary hearings, contract termination, payment plans for members, personnel issues, disability requests, initiate foreclosure on a property, mental illness, director censure, and potential liability issues needing legal counsel. These are the only items that are legally supposed to be discussed in executive sessions. So I'm sure you all got the Colony News for this month. And in the Colony News, there is a little paragraph about how the board has decided that next year they're going to stop sending out coupon books, and they'll only send them out if by special request, and even then they're going to charge somebody for it. Well, when was this discussed and voted on by the board? I don't recall it ever being in an open session. Do any of you? So if this was done in executive session, it shouldn't have been. This should have been open to the entire membership. Something that I just discovered day before yesterday, I believe, all the general session meetings that were posted on YouTube have been taken down, deleted, and scrubbed from the site. Who made that decision? When was that discussed in an open session and voted on by the board of directors? I don't recall that ever happening, because I would really like to hear a discussion on why that was even done in the first place. So these are things that are kind of troublesome. And these are just two very, very recent things. Doesn't include a lot of other things that have been going on. Another thing that I would like to see, that I brought up several times, is the financial reporting. I would hope that that would start to become current, because what we get in our newsletters is 3 to 4 months old. I can't find a legitimate reason for that. So maybe, and this was an idea that was bounced off of me from another resident here that I thought was a pretty darn good idea. Why don't we have current financial records on the colony website that's accessed through a homeowner portal? Why can't we do that?
That's a good idea.
And in addition to that, why can't we have current financial records published in the newsletter? As promised in my candidate night, I said that I would show you the documentation that I used when I was talking about the reserve study. So the treasurer's report that we saw in the newsletter that is for the year end, April 2024, puts our reserve assets at $3,851,000. But at the general session meeting, the slide that we were shown puts the total at $3,882,061, roughly a $30K difference. Then you compare that with the projections that we received in our annual report, which should be $3,966,000 and change. So I would like to know, and I think that it would be prudent if, when the treasurer gives his report, he would kind of mention these things and explain them to us. Because the annual reserve study, how they formulated these figures, there are some assumptions there, and these are projections. But, you know, an 80 grand swing, that's kind of a big number. And so I kind of want to know what's going on. And I think we deserve comprehensive information. Another thing that I want to bring to your, and those are the numbers that I used at candidates night, so now you know where they came from. Another thing is, that was in our annual report that I just kind of want to bring your attention to, is the projections. And again, these projections use assumptions, so these are not hard numbers. These numbers can fluctuate, but they shouldn't fluctuate a whole lot unless there's something really dramatic that happens. But what I want to do is bring your attention to the column that's labeled member contribution. And you see how that number keeps climbing if it stays on the projection that the reserve study predicts. So this tells me we better really start getting a handle on our expenditures here, because these are numbers that can't just be ignored. These are numbers that really do need to be funded. And you look at this increase, that's basically going to be what your dues are going to start increasing on. So there's really not going to be a way that any board's going to be able to put a lid on the increasing of the dues. The only thing that they can do is start right now preparing for all of this, because they have the visibility, and start looking at where are we spending our money? And are we getting value for every dollar spent? I would like to have member comments at the general sessions move to the end of the meeting. This was something that was discussed a couple of years ago, and people who were running for the board were in all agreement of this. That kind of, I guess, got tabled or kicked to the side or something like that, because it never happened. But when you have members that are able to ask questions at the end of the meeting, because of what they just heard, what the board just presented, you have more involvement with the community. You have a good exchange. I can tell you one thing too. There is nothing in the rules There is nothing in Robert's rules, there is nothing in parliamentary procedure that says a board cannot answer a question coming from members during the member comment section. So it's a little, I don't know, I think disrespectful when somebody comes up to the podium, asks a question or reads a comment, and all you hear is, okay, next. We need some more interaction here, and that's something that I would like to work on. Because the more interaction you have with the community, the more the community feels involved, and the less you have of any misinformation or issues that arise. I'd also like to see a comprehensive community evacuation plan that all residents have a copy of. Now, when I first moved in here 5 years ago at the end of this month, I asked in my orientation meeting, is there a fail-safe on the gates if the power goes out? I was told, no, of course not. Somebody will go there with a key and open them up. Okay. That's not something I was used to, and I have lived in gated communities before. Then I asked if there was an evacuation plan, in case we had to evacuate the community, which street is supposed to go out of which exit. Oh, we don't have that. Your block captain will come and tell you what street to go on. Now, just by a show of hands, I'd like to know how many people here have had to evacuate their community. Okay? You know, time is not your friend. I've had to evacuate 3 times, and one of them also involved a medical evacuation. We are not prepared for this, people. Now, I'm not blaming the Emergency Preparedness Committee or the Safety and Access Committee, because this is something that should have been driven by the Board of Directors, or at a minimum, the management company, because we paid them for their expertise, right? Yet, here we stand, we don't have anything about this. Now, I've heard things, well, how could this possibly be? Because we don't know what emergency will arise. It could be an earthquake, it could be a fire. Well, that's why you have contingency plans for each emergency. So I think this is a serious thing. You all know just a few weeks ago, we had a couple of brush fires that weren't that far away from here. Embers travel. We don't have anything. So this is something that I would also like to work on. And HOA business documents should be readily available to homeowners, and they should be complete and comply with the law. That's not happening here. And it's not that this is the first time I brought this up, so this isn't a new thing to anybody, but it is something that has been continually ignored. Sorry. General ledger. If you go and ask for a copy of the general ledger so you can see where your money is being spent, what you'll get is a general ledger copy that is heavily redacted. The redactions are not necessary. The only thing that should be redacted from a general ledger is for a resident's confidentiality or for a legal matter, not for somebody using a credit card. Yet, that's what you get. That's not right. We should also be able to obtain a copy of a comprehensive budget that shows line items and descriptions. And that comprehensive budget would also show general ledger numbers, so we could trace it back to the general ledger and find out, oh, okay, this money was spent for this line item in the budget. Okay, I get that. But no. You go in and ask for a copy of the line item budget, and you're told, no. You get a portfolio, which is a summary, and that's all we're gonna give you. I don't think that's right either. Then vendor contracts. You have a legal right to go in and ask for a copy of, or just go and review a copy of any vendor contract. And that includes the management company's contract. Now, I was made aware of a resident that asked to see a copy of the patrol service contract. She went into the office and asked for it and was told, you can't see that because that's confidential. What? What would be confidential in a patrol service contract? I don't know. But even if there was something that was slightly confidential, you could redact it, because you have no trouble redacting the general ledger. So you could redact, but to just refuse somebody something that they are entitled to see, it's like, what's going on here? Have we just gotten so used to doing things a certain way we forgot the right way? So I think that there's a lot of room. There's no need to lay blame anywhere. Let's just fix it. I think another thing that I would like to work on is a true, comprehensive, independent financial evaluation of the golf course. Now, it's been spread around that I'm totally against the golf course, which is nonsense. I've never said I've been against the golf course. What I am against is mismanaging. What I am against is not having accountability, not having any transparency. And what I am against is not knowing what this thing is really potentially going to cost us. Because I'll tell you, the $3.1 million that's planned to collect, that's not going to cover very much. We need a true evaluation of what it's going to cost to rehab the course. Then we need a true evaluation of what it's going to cost to rehab all the buildings. And we need cost and timeline projections. And then we also need historical revenue and projections. Because again, I hear golf course was profitable. But yet the only information I've been able to dig up since its inception, the golf course has never, ever been self-sustaining. It has never, ever been profitable. Now we hear at the golf course updates during the general session, oh, the golf course made a profit this month. Well, how can that be? If the golf course is in arrears of their gate fees, which is money that they owe us, how can they turn a profit if they're not paying their bills? If the golf course is being given money because they can't pay their bills, how are they making a profit? I don't understand how that works. So I think we need some really hard numbers from some independent sources that we can all take a look at and understand where the numbers came from and who the companies are that are putting these together, so we know where we stand, so we can prepare ourselves. So we can make real decisions based on real information. Because this is what we've got. We've got a slope that's eroded. Now, all of this concrete stuff like that, I think has been cleaned up since this photo was taken. But notice the drainage pipes that are 6 to 8 feet sticking out of a eroding slope. There's 2 of them. This slope continues to erode. Now I do know that the board because of the nervous homeowners, did bring out a civil engineer. At least that's what they told us, and I believe that, because I think that that was a prudent thing to do, and I think that they recognized that was a prudent thing to do. And that what we were told is that the civil engineer said, oh, no problem, your slope's fine, not an issue. Well, the slope does keep eroding, because I do have pictures that show that. Anybody here familiar with what's going on in Palos Verdes right now?
I am.
Yeah. So is this something we want to take a risk with? Or is this something we ought to be preparing for? Because this is what's going on. What happens when this slope fails? If indeed it does, I don't know it will. Now, I don't want to be an alarmist here, but it's time for people to start to pay attention. If we secure the golf course and we've got to do something to shore up the slope to make sure there's no more erosion, and it indeed is stable and remains stable, what do you think that's going to cost? Well, I'll tell you. People may sit there and go, well, that's golf course property, so, Well, if those slopes do fail, and hopefully they won't, but if we have to do something to shore up those slopes to make sure indeed that they don't fail or continue to erode, guess who's going to pay for it? We will be responsible, because Article 20 makes us responsible. So, how many in here are really familiar with what Article 20 is? Not a whole lot of hands. Okay. Well, let me tell you. At the February 7th, 2023 General Session meeting, this was the story that we were continually told.
Article 20 is in effect if we get hold of the property, period.
Article 20 is in effect if we get a hold of the golf course. That's not true. Article 20 became in effect the day it was filed and made a part of our governing documents.
2 weeks after the election.
And that, pardon me?
2 weeks after the election. 2 weeks after the election of May 5th, 2022.
No, Article 20 was filed and recorded on May 20th, 2022. And that was just 15 days after the vote. This is the document that was filed with the county. So what does Article 20 really mean, and what does it mean to you? And why should you even care? So let's go over each clause to make sure that we're representing it correctly. Powers. In addition to the powers and duties enumerated in section 7.2 of this declaration, the board, for and on behalf of the association, shall have the right and power to acquire the California Oaks Golf Club, including the golf course property, as more particularly described in Exhibit C, and the facilities therein and thereon. This gives the power of the HOA, this gives the power to the board to make the purchase. No problem, right? Create a separate legal entity to own, restore, manage, operate, and maintain the golf club, including without limitation the golf course, restaurant, and pro shop. What does this mean? This gives full authority to the HOA board to make all decisions without any oversight, limitations, and removes any required involvement of us, the homeowners.
We vote the bill.
Yeah, it does.
We vote the bill.
If you have something to say, please step up to the podium and say it.
I'm estimating $7 million to get the golf course up.
The HOA board
Please,
Push the button.
Testing.
Oh, really?
The HOA board is our representative, and we have control of what they do now and in the future by our vote. That's the way it works.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said.
That's your problem.
No, you need to explain it, because I didn't hear it
You're wrong,
either.
sir, the CCNRs control what we do. The board
Excuse me,
doesn't.
hey.
No, you gotta miss.
Please,
Oh, I'm not mistaken.
if you have something to say, please step up to the podium. We want to have some civility, okay? And we want to make sure that everybody's heard and heard clearly. Thank you.
Security wall.
Everybody hear me?
No, you gotta push the button. It's at the bottom, I think.
I can talk loud enough for everybody to hear.
Turn your mic on.
Well, I'm not a mic person. I know, I'm an idiot.
That was
There we go.
nice.
Yep.
That's-
Okay. In this hand, I have a civil lawsuit I've prepared. I am the only plaintiff in this lawsuit. It will soon be filed in California Superior Court in the County of Riverside. And it's seeking invalidation of the May 5th, 2022 vote because it was done incorrectly. What the board is trying to do, or has tried to do, is they've tried to circumvent Article 18.1, which specifically says when you have an annexation of land, it requires a 55% majority vote of, when I'm finished, you can talk.
Point of order, please tell us who you are.
I did, I said I'm Glenn Bosworth. Okay? Pay attention. So, I'm a bit upset, folks. This has gone on long enough. And this lawsuit's gonna be filed very soon in Superior Court. It's named a lot of people in here who've all been responsible for that vote and forming the Colony Creek Properties LLC, which is supposed to own the golf course. Now, this is based on 3 points in the CCNRs. Don't take my word for them. Read the CCNRs. I'll give you the articles. Article 18.1 requires a 55% vote of all of the owners in the colony to acquire additional property. Acquiring that golf course, the restaurant, and the pro shop is an acquisition. I've gone one step further. I've researched this. Spreading out the cost of a golf course amongst all the property owners is also deemed an acquisition, and that requires a 55% vote. They got a 52.8% vote when they voted. I doubt if they get 50% now. The second point is, in such a situation as what I just explained, an annexation or spreading all the cost amongst the property owners to run that thing requires a 67% supermajority vote of all the mortgagees. And round numbers, out of the 1,600 homes in this community, 1,000 of them have loans on them. Those lenders have to vote, and there has to be a 67% majority vote. That vote was never done, and that's required under Article 16, I've got it in the lawsuit, and 17.
What was that 67% to do what?
67% supermajority. The lenders who have loans on these houses have to vote.
What are we voting on?
They have to vote on the golf course annexation. It was never done. It was never done. The 51% vote they used under Article 16 was because they feel this is an amendment of our CCNRs. No, it's not an amendment when you have something clear and concise as Article 18.1 that clearly says you have to have a 55% majority. They didn't do that. They're seeking to circumvent Article 18.1, and that's in the Now, Article 20 says the following, and Pam's right. And damn it, folks, we got to elect this woman. We've got to elect this woman. I don't agree with everything she says. She knows that. I know that. But we've got to elect this woman. We need that woman on the board. We do need her. You tell your friends on either side of you, that's the woman we need on there.
Thank you.
So, now, Article 20. Article 20 says the following, and she's getting into this. But it says, the board has the power and the right to acquire that golf course. Wrong, they don't. We do, under Article 18.1, 55% vote. They do not have the power. We do. Now, they want to create a separate legal entity. That's the LLC. To show you how stupid this board is. They created the LLC. Come in. You're flipping me off.
Yeah, you call me stupid.
You are stupid, and I'll show you why.
Sit down. Sit down.
I'll show you why. I'll show you why.
Go not.
Okay,
You
hey,
formed an LLC.
that's enough.
You formed an LLC, Community Creek Properties. You didn't reserve the website. You didn't reserve the email. Guess who owns that? I do. I do. I own CommunityCreekProperties.com. I own the website. I own the email. That's how stupid you guys are. You formed it with the Secretary of State. You didn't even reserve the website.
Glenn, stop.
Hang on.
Don't you want to be silly?
Let's take the temperature
down.
down a little
Okay.
bit, and let's just discuss issues.
Okay,
We're not
here-
here to,
Here's the next issue.
just the issues.
Okay,
please.
here's the next issue. There is, in Article 20, there's no provision that allows for the income. That's because the LLC is going to own the property. But there's specific, clear and specific provisions for the expenses. And I'll read them to you. Create a separate legal entity to own, restore, manage, operate, and maintain the golf club, including, without limitation, the golf course, restaurant, and pro shop. Treat all financial obligations as a common expense. That means our homeowners association every month gets billed for the operation costs of those three entities. The more burgers they sell, the more it costs us. The more income goes into the LLC. The more golf clubs they sell, the more it costs us. The more income goes into the LLC. And to this extent, Bruce Delfonso, 2 years ago, got up here, and I asked him the question, do the homeowners get any benefit of any income? His answer was no, they don't. Nothing's changed. Nothing has changed at all. So we absorb all of the costs of the restaurant, of the golf course, of the pro shop. The LLC gets all of the income. There is no reporting back to us what's done with that income. We get nothing. We get nothing. This is a blank check. Of course the golf course is going to be profitable. I would be profitable too if you paid all of my expenses for my business. And all I had to do was receive the income. That's pretty darn good. Who wants that? Who wants that for a business? We all do. That's what they're doing. Prove me wrong.
Are you a licensed attorney?
I have a JD. I'm not a licensed attorney.
Okay. We pay, as a board, we pay.
They're wrong.
Licensed
Hang
attorneys.
on.
I'm sure they're not nearly as qualified as you are. So do we believe you, or do we believe the attorney?
Look at the video of Sue. Look at the video of Sue when Pam.
Case so far.
Look at the video of Sue when Pam asked her the question.
Man, this guy is disruptive, he's not.
What about
help you at all.
18.1?
Sit down, Pam. Sit down.
Let's, again, let's lower the temperature here. Let's, right now, take a breath, and let's finish with the thing, with the presentation.
I want to hear what you have to
Because-
say.
Comment on this,
Go ahead, Carol.
because everyone is listening to you into running.
Hey!
microphone.
Daryl, use the
Please
microphone.
take a seat and I will finish the presentation.
Okay, just a second. He is dead wrong on all of his points, virtually.
No, I'm not.
No,
He
he's
is
not.
legally, yes, he is. And he's gonna lose that lawsuit, and he's wrong on so many things because it's his interpretation.
Excuse me.
I see head shaking, but
Excuse
you don't have any
me.
idea
Hey,
what's going
Hey.
on.
stop.
Please, if you would like to challenge him, do it with fact and not broad statements.
But you see,
Please.
we could go, okay, I'll tell you what we're gonna do. I'm gonna throw out a challenge to you and to Brian. I'll debate both of you anytime,
please
any
take
place,
it.
listen, anytime, any
No,
place,
no.
and then we can cover all these issues.
Please
There's
take a
absolutely
seat.
Sit down.
Please take
Sit
a
down.
seat. Please take a seat. Thank you. Thank you. Please take a seat.
You came in here like a brontosaurus to cause arguments.
Please
Stop.
take a seat or please.
Ask the question.
No, answer the question. You have
Ask
been
Please take a seat or please leave. If you
I'm
don't
sorry.
want to
I'm
leave,
sorry,
we can
ma'am.
have you removed. I would rather not do that.
Now, okay.
Take a
Who's
seat.
going to remove me?
They did that on the
Yeah.
first time you were at the debate,
Guilty of assault and
when
battery.
Brenda Sindorf was in here.
Daryl,
You will be guilty of assault and battery.
okay, Daryl, would you like for me to call the MPD to have you removed? Come on. This is supposed to be a
They're calling
meeting where
security.
people are
I
going to be
did not
civil.
start this, ma'am.
Please
I did not start
take
it.
You'll have plenty of time to debate this because you're named in the lawsuit.
Take a seat, Daryl. Take a seat.
You go back and sit
Take
down, and I'll take mine.
a seat.
Is this gonna be a standoff? You take your seat, and I will.
Okay, everybody,
And I will.
we are going to continue with the meeting. If Daryl wants to stand there, he can keep standing there.
Yay.
Is that your buddy?
You need to get on this.
You got a phone call 911? You're gonna have to take it outside.
Okay. Let's calm it down a little bit and let's continue with the presentation.
Everything is designed to be data.
Now,
Yeah,
no, you cannot. We're continuing with the presentation. The new, hey, can I have their attention, please?
This is open forum.
The new LLC was recorded just days after the golf course was.
Pam, let her ask.
Please take a seat.
Pam, let her
Your
ask.
agenda. You said open
Hi,
forum, there have to be
everybody,
questions.
I'm
You want to
Maria
answer?
Anderson, and I have a question.
Please take a seat.
I don't want to. You go sit down. Come
Let her
get
ask
me.
her question.
Yeah, I have a
No.
question.
This is what happens when people are terrified of the truth coming out.
Well, she's give her a chance to show you, and then debate her.
Act like an adult.
Let her ask a question. What are you afraid of?
I am an adult. I was invited here to an open forum.
What's your question?
What is my?
Please sit down.
No, let her
Now,
ask.
the
Let
new
her ask.
LLC was recorded just
Let her
days after
ask.
the golf course.
Where did you go
Vote.
to law school?
Harriet,
Or-
please,
I have-
security, can you please remove this woman?
Yeah, please. I have a question for Pam. I want to know.
Harriet, please sit down or you're going to be removed.
That she went to Baylor such an expert. Can you answer the question?
Please sit down, Harriet.
It's Harriet.
It's an open forum. It's a town hall.
I want to sit right in the
So now you all know what the master plan was.
What was that? What is it?
Well, you didn't come in here for just questions, apparently.
I just came.
Please write her up or remove her.
Didn't look like that.
Thank you. Okay, the new LLC was recorded just days after the golf course
No,
vote.
I have so many times that I've been involved in here, especially in Mission Diego, Orange County with that El Toro Marine thing, like just she did too.
Harriet,
What?
You people.
would you please?
people.
tell me I have to leave all the time. I want her gone too. If you do it to me, I want them done too.
Do I have the right to ask this question in this?
Not yet, apparently. She's just going on with the quick. Just let all
She jumped on for it, but she haven't had jumped on for it.
Harriet?
I love to have somebody who would take the responsibility of telling the truth, answering a direct question, which she will
Harriet, I can
not
tell you
do.
right now, the PD is on its way here,
Good.
and he will be removed.
Yeah, but this goes on your record.
And anybody else who wants to be disruptive will also be removed too.
Okay.
Because apparently this was kind of a nice little plan to disrupt everything.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
You're afraid of the truth
Yeah.
until the officers get here. Can you please tell us what Fortune 500 company you work for, in what capacity,
She
and
never
how
said she
many people
did.
work for you, under you, or reported to you in any way?
She never told me
Harriet,
that.
if you were paying attention, you would have seen it on the first two slides.
What company did you work for, Fortune 500?
She never said a Fortune
Who
500.
cares?
For one, I never said I worked for a Fortune 500 company.
She never said
However,
that.
no.
Harriet, she never said
Okay,
that.
please prove it. Don't come here with broad statements. If you don't have something
I
that you can
expected you
prove,
to answer it. I didn't
if
expect
you don't
you
have
to.
something that you can prove something with, then you're just being disruptive and being disingenuous.
Okay, let me ask this question. If I prove to you that you said you worked for a Fortune 500 committee, will you withdraw your name from the vote?
No.
Yes. Because, yeah, show me where I said a Fortune 500 company.
How many people worked under you?
No, show me how.
Okay, what is this?
Well,
No,
I'm gonna,
get outta here.
I'm gonna keep
She's a
talking.
crazy lady.
Because, what? She said it at a board meeting, she said it at.
Well, show
one of
us.
the meetings. Well, I can't now, I didn't expect her to say she wouldn't.
Okay,
tell
well
me.
then wait.
Then shut up and sit
Get
down.
out.
Get your hearing
Sit down,
aid.
Harriet. Sit down.
Go back to your dementia meeting, man.
You made your point. Sit
Then we
down.
remove from
Sit
that.
down.
You're just making a fool of yourself out there.
Harriet, we're not asking for your opinion.
You're the one that's making a fool of herself.
Go back to Colony Strong, will you?
Yeah.
I mean, the colony minions.
Well, it's a cabal, man.
Can't stay.
Just let her tell her thing.
Nobody new wants to run because they
Let's move
know
on.
they'll be ganged up on.
She is a crazy lady. It's true. I never knew
Let's
it.
get back on topic and continue as adults. The new LLC
Let's run through this quick.
that was recorded, which we were continually told
Yeah, quick.
was not in effect,
She.
which was not true, because it wasn't me saying it, you saw the video,
It's just a
you saw the recorded documents.
I thought about running for
The new
They'll just
LLC
gang up on me and just
was recorded just days after the golf course,
doesn't have that Colony Strong.
Don't even.
and before any court ruling of the judicial foreclosure. So why spend the thousands of dollars on attorney's fees and filing, everything else that was involved in that, when you don't even know if it's going to even be needed? Why do that? Is that responsible spending? If there was a valid reason for it, maybe. I don't know what that valid reason was, and I can't even imagine what that valid reason was. The LLC was recorded on June 20th, 2022. There's the document
Oh, wow.
that was filed, signed by the HOA president. We no longer have any say in anything the entity does as of the date of its formation. Because as residents, we're not shareholders in this LLC. We're not part of this LLC. It's a separate entity.
Is that true?
The transfer of the golf club, including the golf course property, golf club facilities, separate legal entity, created for the purpose of owning, restoring, managing, operating, maintaining the golf course property and its facilities. And I think what Mr. Bosworth was maybe a point he was intending to make was that it's very clear that as homeowners, we will never have any ability to have any input whatsoever. We will never be reimbursed for any of the money given or share in any of the profits, if there ever even is any. But because of Article 20, we will be responsible for making sure it pays its bills. And the bills it can't, we will pay. Article 20 gives the board full authority to hire consultants and other personnel as it deems necessary or prudent to assist in any of the aforementioned act. The board has full authority now to pay whoever they want with no requirement to even inform us or explain how they're spending our money or who is receiving compensation and how much. This is in effect now. Enter into a shared use agreement, a shared use maintenance agreement with any owner of the golf course and treat all financial obligations under this agreement as a common expense. That's what's happening now. The colony is now responsible for financial obligations the golf course cannot meet, including the maintenance of the golf course, the facilities, no matter who owns it, and with no cap. Now this is kind of interesting. This is something that I found kind of interesting to me. Because the main deal of the cross complaint that the HOA filed against Majestic was to enforce the performance deed. And the main sticking point of that performance deed was the maintenance of the figures and slopes. We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in this litigation. Yet all of a sudden, because of Article 20, hey, okay, we'll share that responsibility with you. Well, why didn't we say that before we spent the hundreds of thousands of dollars in litigation and filed a lawsuit in the first place to enforce a performance deed that now we're saying, oh, we don't care about that. We'll share the maintenance costs with you. I don't get that. And I don't think that was ever explained to any of us. We are now the financial guarantor of the golf course, no matter who owns it, period. All HOA homes now have the additional financial responsibility of a third-party for-profit business attached to it. This is what Article 20 does. So far, we have given over $700,000 to the golf course. Now, I think you might recall, after we kept on hearing about, oh, Article 20 doesn't have any impact, quote unquote. Article 20 is not in effect, quote unquote. I stood at that podium and asked and told the board, look, you keep on saying Article 20 is not in effect. So if it's not in effect, then you are illegally disposing of HOA assets by giving away our dues money without a vote of the membership. So which is it? Pick a lane. Either it's in effect or you're illegally disposing our assets.
It's in effect.
Next thing we know is like, oh yeah, well I guess Article 20 is in effect. Gee, thank you, Jim, for explaining that. Really? perform any and all other acts which may be necessary, prudent, or appropriate in the furtherance of these objectives. This gives the authority, without limitation or oversight, to do and spend whatever they deem necessary, prudent, or appropriate, without the need or requirement to inform us, the homeowners. Here's a direct quote that was taken from an excerpt from the August 15th General Session Board meeting. I quote, "There were some changes that needed to be made for going forward, and it's all about to continue to keep the LLC to be treated as a separate organization. The board amended the operating agreement." Wait, what? What operating agreement? When was this ever discussed in an open session and voted on by the board? Anybody remember that? Because I don't. And isn't it interesting that every single general session board meeting that was on YouTube has all of a sudden disappeared, been taken down, including the August 15th meeting, been taken down, deleted from YouTube, and scrubbed?
I saw that on, it's out there, Pam. I just.
Go ahead, but can we get a microphone?
I just asked, August 15th is out there.
I'm sorry, can't hear you.
The August 15th board meeting is out in YouTube. You can watch it.
It's back
Okay, the
there.
August 15th has been put back up?
I don't know if it was ever taken down, but I saw it last night.
Good.
Okay, great, thank you. I hope it has, because then you can all see the video where this quotation was taken from. But this tells you, obviously there is business being conducted that we are completely unaware of. I don't think that's right. Now, you may accuse me of being negative and bashing the board. Okay, fine. I still don't think that's right. Here's an analogy of what I think kind of fits the situation. You may not agree with it, but Article 20 is basically like us signing all the blank checks in our checkbook, handing it over to somebody or leaving it out, somebody coming in, writing out the checks to whoever they want for whatever amount they want. We never know about it. That's basically what I believe is going on. I don't think that's right. But here's a real kicker. And again, I think Glenn was starting to hit on this before the interruption. Article 20 was never necessary to own and operate the golf course. It never was necessary.
Whose opinion?
It's Article 18.
Did I understand that correctly?
In whose opinion?
Article 18 provides for the.
Please watch this and stop
What
disrupting.
I told Mr. Bosworth was that this vote is necessary to amend the CCNRs and to give the association board the authority to make the acquisition, because there's nothing in the CCNRs right now that allows the board to acquire property that is not already part of the association to own and manage. So foreclosure by the association would go forward regardless of whether you vote yes or no on this. But at the foreclosure sale, if the vote is no, the association cannot acquire the property.
Okay, that I think I didn't understand it correctly then. Okay, but I think you'll agree with me. In our CCNRs and bylaws, we do have a section that talks about annexation. And that is annexing property that is currently does not belong to the HOA, which
the golf course property does not. And so we have the ability to annex that property if indeed we could acquire it through the foreclosure in payment for what is due on our performance fee. So that's already there.
There is a provision about annexation, and that actually was discussed in terms of the vote, whether to annex, have the homeowner vote be to annex the golf course, and a decision was made not to do that because of the tax reasons and setting up a separate corporation to do that. But and there's a vote. Yes, exactly. It would have required a vote. It's not something that the board could do.
That
Yes.
ability is there, so that statement was maybe not the most accurate, because we do have the ability to annex property.
Well, with a homeowner vote.
Yes, of course, of course. So, yeah, so that ability is ours, if we chose to go that direction. I get that. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that everything was clear, because it kind of seemed like there was absolutely nothing available to us in our current CCNRs, when actually there is. So thank you.
I think the point was there was nothing available to acquire it without going out to a homeowner vote.
No, I don't think that was it.
Okay.
So thank you.
So basically, what it is, and what she actually admitted to, is that annexation was available to us. All it would have required was a vote, just like the vote that we made that involved Article 20. One was to establish an independent LLC to acquire the property. That required a vote. The other avenue that was available to us was to acquire the property through annexation, and that would require a vote also.
55%.
So it's a little bit misleading what was said here. Because we did have the ability to acquire the property through annexation. There would not have been any tax burden that would have been an issue, because we could have annexed the property, we could file for a 501c whatever. It didn't have to be a C3, it could have been a C7 for entertainment purposes, could have still been a nonprofit corporation. But that didn't happen. What happened was Article 20. Now, Article 20 was necessary so the HOA could legally give money to the golf course without a vote for the membership. That is the only legitimate reason I have been able to come up with that explains why we went this route versus annexation, which was something that was already in our CCNRs. We would not have had to spend the thousands of dollars in attorney's fees to come up with an amendment to the CCNRs, file the amendment of the CCNRs. We wouldn't have had to do any of that. It was already there. As a matter of fact, in Davis Sterling, under annexation, it actually uses the acquisition of a golf course as an example. Here's another thing to think about, and a reason why I want to run for the board. On May 18th, 2023, the court ruled that the value of the performance deed was $2.7 million and change. Great news. So the court ordered and said, if Majestic doesn't come in and redeem the property and the judgment, the $2.7 million will be issued to us as a credit for when we go to bid on the foreclosure sale. Great news. So does this mean that the special assessment, since now that we have the $1.5 million that was voted as the maximum number that the HOA could pay or bid to acquire the golf course, does that mean that now, that's already covered by the credit that the court issued if Majestic doesn't redeem. So, shouldn't the assessment be reduced then? Or are they still gonna plan on collecting the full amount? Which means, if they do, they will be giving the LLC $3.1 million in change in cash that they have collected from all of us. For some reason, that just doesn't seem quite fair to me. Because we voted on that. We voted to pay $1.5 million in cash for the golf course out of foreclosure and give the $1.6 million to the LLC.
Pam, if you'd send me your slides on that, I'd be happy to give you.
Daryl, please sit down.
Reply.
Thank you.
No, you wanted specifics and you choose
So,
not giving
the
me.
myth of,
Let her finish.
this is very specific, please sit down. The
I
myth
want your
being,
slides so I can.
Daryl,
reply
sit down,
specifically.
let her finish, and then do that.
take a seat,
You can't have
sir,
your cake.
or
You
leave.
can't have your cake and eat it too, Pam.
Take a seat or leave.
Just let her finish.
We were also given the myth that if we don't acquire the golf course would be developed if we don't own it. I still hear people saying that, oh, we've got to get the golf course or else developers are going to come in here. No, they're not. This map shows 2 blue lines running through it. This map is the official map from the USGS. Those 2 blue lines are designated by the Army Corps of Engineers as United States waterways. This land cannot be developed, which is why the houses are laid out the way they are, and the golf course is there. Because that part of the property that just could not be developed. So let's put that myth to rest and stop that misinformation from continuing to be in our community. So here's a question that I asked the attorney, and he dodged the answer. Why wasn't this settled at the court-ordered mandatory settlement conference last December? Legitimate question. What was offered at the mandatory settlement conference? The answer I got from the attorney, and again, hopefully they've got it put back up on YouTube, but the answer that I got from the attorney was, well, that's confidential. We can't divulge that to you because that kind of gives away some of the things with the lawsuit, and there's a California evidence code that says that it's confidential, and he started citing some of the California evidence code. Well, okay. The code he was citing was accurate, however, didn't apply to a mandatory settlement conference. It applied to a mediation. There was no confidentiality attached to a mandatory settlement conference unless a settlement is reached and there's an NDA attached to that settlement, period. So, before I open it up again, I want to tell you what I discovered, what happened at that mandatory settlement conference. Now, unfortunately, I have nothing that I can show you, but I can tell you what I discovered. And if I'm wrong, then show me how I'm wrong. It's my understanding that Majestic went into that settlement conference and made an offer to settle. And their offer was, basically, we know that you have been approved to pay $1.5 million for the course. We will sell you that course right now. But what we want is a parcel of land that is adjacent to Jackson, and we would like to build a small medical rehab facility.
Can't do it.
So this could have been settled. We could have had the course in January for $1.5 million, which we were already told the board they could spend. And we could be on our way to fixing up the golf course. The funny thing about that is, we could have given them that parcel of land, but because of the blue lines, they would have never been able to build on them. They would have been stuck with a dormant piece of land that we probably would have later been able to come back in a year or two and said, hey, we'll give you $50,000, $100,000 for it. And we would have been done. We would have been done with all the litigation. We would have been done with everything. We would have been on the way to doing with the golf course whatever is supposed to get done with the golf course. I would still like the attorneys to answer that question, because I want to know if the information that I dug up, which took me a long time to do, is accurate. Because if it is, I'd like an explanation on that. So now if you have any questions, the thing what I really want to do is I want to bring some openness and some transparency back to this community. I want to stop this nonsense that goes on and this bickering. I think we have a common thread here. The common thread is we want a financially stable and healthy community. We want a community that has best-in-class amenities for all of us. We want a community that whether we agree or disagree, we respect each other as neighbors. I think that might be a common thread for most of us. Maybe not all, but for most of us. That's not going to happen if we keep this division. That's not going to happen if we can't pull back the curtain and get some answers to some of these questions. That's not going to happen if our business is constantly being done behind closed doors and we can't even ask a question that gets an answer. So that's what I'm asking you guys to do. Because it's not me that's going to make the difference. It's you. I'm just going to be an instrument for you. But I think we all deserve this. So I'm asking you just to open up your minds and think about it. And all of this, one question too to ask. If I'm so wrong and I'm so negative, why are people so afraid? Why are people so aggressive?
Because you are.
Why is this? What do they fear? It's real simple. So does anybody have any questions? No, excuse me. I would like to take somebody who hasn't asked a question. Go ahead, please.
I want to hear that guy.
Yeah, I was watching your video for being a candidate, and but it was asked the question, what committee you've been on. I wasn't clear on what committee you've been on.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. My hearing's kind of bad.
What committees?
I was watching the video of you being a candidate, and in that video, he was asked, what committee have you been on? And it wasn't clear to me, what committee have you been on?
Oh, okay. I'm on the Sunshine Committee. And other than that, I have a real problem with the committee thing. Because I don't think, and I kind of find it a little disrespectful, that they want people to fill out applications and go through 2 interview cycles. Hey, I'm a homeowner just like everybody else is. If I choose to say, I want to volunteer my time, I shouldn't have to jump through hoops. I know people that have tried to be on committees that have been rejected because it's a cliquey thing. And I'm just not going to support that. But what I do is I think it's important that the people here get information that is hard documents that they can read and form their own opinions on. That's why I send out all of the court documents, so everybody can see what is actually going on. Because, for example, there was something mentioned at the last general session meeting that had to do with the fraudulent conveyance. And what was said at that meeting was not quite accurate. The judge did not say, oh yeah, you know, I think you guys should go ahead, you've got a case here, you should go ahead and file it differently. No, the judge ruled on that saying to the HOA attorneys, and you can read this in the order that I've sent to everybody. The judge basically said no evidence was offered to support the court case. So he dismissed it and ruled in favor of the Wangs.
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say is that being on the board, such as this especially, where you got to work with the other board members and you have to have a chemistry that's healthy and that, you know, everybody agrees on and it edifies the community. As an example today, even if you got on the board, how do you see that's not being an issue?
That's a very good question, and I can understand why you asked that. The thing of it is being on the board, and this is something that all board members should do, and they may struggle with it, so that may be a question for them. But when you go on a board of directors, you are there to represent the community, not your own personal feelings. So those need to be left out on the other side of the door. And you need to conduct business. Now, I've had a pretty extensive business background, and I know how to conduct business, especially with adversaries. So that should not be an issue with me. If the law is being followed, proper procedures are being followed, and everything goes in, you're going to have a difference of opinion, yes, but you need to leave personal issues outside that door. So I think that is probably a good question for all board members to answer. So thank you for asking. Glenn, you're next.
It's on.
It's on.
I think it's on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask if you hold a law degree.
What's your name?
You want to ask me what?
Are you a lawyer?
Am I what?
Are you a lawyer?
No,
Okay.
I've never said I was.
No, you didn't. You seem to be presenting all the facts as if you were a lawyer and
It's research.
understood
It's
them.
called research.
Okay?
I'm not a lawyer, but I tell you what. I'm experienced and I can actually read and comprehend. Okay?
Okay. I'm really glad that you put that video up there that showed our lawyers responding to your questions. But I think the whole thing is pretty simple from my perspective. When this whole thing was happening with the golf course, we had many, many meetings with our board, with our lawyers, talking about what we needed to do to take over the golf course if necessary and control it, operate it, whatever. Every day, a lot of town hall meetings about that where they shared as much information as they could or had, okay, but it was kind of an unknown adventure. The point is, we put it out to a vote of all the homeowners, and we passed that we wanted to get control of the golf course. And then we left it to our board and our lawyers to determine the best fashion to do that. I believe we made the right decision. I don't think we should be listening to people that don't have the education to direct us in other directions. Thank you.
Sure. To comment on
To comment on what you just said. Number one, if you actually look at that video again, you can see where Ryan Jones told us that it was necessary, that was the only thing we could do, that if the golf course went into foreclosure and we didn't pass Article 20, we could not bid on it. That was not true. Ryan Jones also stood in this auditorium and talked about developers coming in and developing the property, and he used the analogy of the golf course in Poway. That was not true. Then there was some things in the golf course meeting that if we don't buy the property, we don't gain possession of the property, there would be a chain link fence put around it. The property would go brown. There would be homeless encampments. I brought the mayor of the city of Murrieta into this auditorium, who stood at that podium and said, that will not happen. As the mayor and representative of the city, it will not be allowed to happen. So that was not true. So there was a lot of misinformation in all of those golf course meetings. There was a video put up of a newscast of a reporter that went up to a community in Chino Hills, and how Chino Hills was just going to be devastated because their golf course was going brown. And that's where the video stopped. And that's what was showing what was going to happen to us if we didn't get that golf course. Well, that's not exactly the end of that story. Because with Chino Hills, yes, indeed, the golf course did go brown. The city made the golf course owner take down the fencing and fine them a huge amount of money and said, if you want to put up a fence, first you have to get the written authority and approval of the HOA of this community. Now the golf course did go brown, and now the homes in Chino Hills have dramatically increased in value instead of going down, because now they're being sold with the advantage on being built and surrounded by what they term as open space. So that's the real end of that story. It's not the scare tactic that was being used to acquire the golf course. So let's deal in some real issues and real information, and not pick and choose and say this part of the information we're going to use, this part we're not, and also make it personal. Let's stop that. When?
Does it work? Yeah. I didn't realize you wanted my background, so we'll get it to you. I started selling real estate at age 19. I became one of the top agents in Escondido. I was Century 21 by the time I was 22. At 26, I was hired as vice president of development.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
At 26, I was hired.
Glenn,
Yeah.
can't hear you.
Okay, I'll start over. At 19, I was a real estate salesman. Became one of the most successful real estate salesmen in the city of Escondido. By 22, I owned a Century 21. Had 25 people working for me, all old enough to be my parent. By 26, I was hired by J.H. Hedrick Company, an apartment and condominium builder and developer in San Diego. I was vice president of the San Diego division.
Is this relevant?
Yeah, you wanted to know the background. I'm getting to that.
We don't care the background. We don't care about you.
Well,
I care.
okay.
I care. I care.
I also became land acquisition manager for KB Home, a top 5 national public home builder. I've dealt in subdivisions, homeowner associations. With J.H. Hedrick Company, we created homeowner associations. I'm very familiar with the Department of Real Estate and CC&Rs and bylaws. We created them and we incorporated those into our projects. I currently own 2 major properties, 154 lots in Winchester and 20 acres we're developing into about 120 lots in Menifee. So, and I also was land acquisition and disposition director for Paul Garrett, who was the largest land developer, residential land developer in the Inland Empire. Now, I do have a Juris Doctor, I have a law degree. So, that gives you a little bit of background as to why I believe my position on the CC&Rs in this community is correct. Now, you saw a video of Sue up there saying, yes, we have a provision. That's Article 18. 18.1 is the annexation provision in our CC&Rs. And it requires a 55% vote to acquire property. What the board has done is they've tried to circumvent that with a 51% vote of Article 20, which provides that we pay all of the expenses. There's no provision for any of the income to come to us. That's going to go into the separate LLC. So I wanted to clarify that what was left out of that video was it requires a 55% vote, which this community never provided. So therefore, the vote that was acquired of 52.6 or 8, or what, call it 53% if you want, but it's void. It's void from the inception because it didn't comply with Article 18.1. In addition, a separate vote must be made between the mortgagees, and that has to require a 67% supermajority. That vote was never provided. The vote that was, and in my lawsuit, I'm asking the court to make a determination that that election is void ab initio. It was never valid under the CC&Rs. Go read 18.1, go read 17, go read 16. It's void ab initio.
So our lawyers were wrong.
Your lawyers were wrong. I went to law school with Ryan Jones. I went to law school with Ryan Jones. We went to the same law school together at the same time.
And he passed the bar, you didn't.
And that's correct. And that's correct because I never took the time off to study for it. But let me tell you something.
Well, maybe you should have.
Fair enough. You can throw darts at me. I didn't pass
That's
the bar.
what's wrong with our board.
Okay,
So why should we?
excuse
I'm not
me.
asking you to trust me. All I'm telling you is what this lawsuit says and that the court is going to decide.
It's fine, proceed with it.
We're done.
Prove her wrong! Prove her wrong! Prove her wrong!
She says she did not get the information from the Langs. That's the only place she could have gotten it because they were present in the settlement conference.
It came from your own
Nobody.
paperwork.
Pardon?
It came from your own paperwork. She didn't make that paperwork up.
Is that your problem?
Prove it.
We know about it, we've been around it. Not what information.
Absolutely, because that is a red herring. That has nothing to do with anything. No, it doesn't. I was involved in all of the litigation.
You're laughing, Joe.
I know every settlement conference. I know every piece. And the Langs never, ever